wonderful to have you here. It's a session talking about a particular project that we have been collaborating on, and it relating to SFIA and specifically the vocational education sector and mapping. So I'm Sally Browner. I'm from the Future Skills organisation, and I'll tell you briefly about that in a second. But presenting alongside me today are some of the key collaborators on the project. So we've got Lisa from ACS, who are our collaborators. Deloitte were also collaborators. They're not here today, but they were very pivotal in this work. And Craig from C4, who's also going to be talking you through elements of the project. So Lisa, if you can just jump to the next slide. First of all, I would love to acknowledge the lands that we are all joining this session today from. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I would like to pay my respects to elders, both past and present, to acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded and that it always was, always will be Aboriginal land. And then just, if we can just jump to the next slide. So to give you some background, I'm from the Future Skills organisation, as I said. For those of you that don't know, Future Skills organisation is one of the 10 jobs and skills councils that's funded by the federal government. And our job, in a nutshell, is to try and bring industry and the vocational sector closer together and make sure that the training that is going on ensures that the people that are doing that training get jobs in industry. And the particular sectors that our Jobs and Skills Council looks after are finance, tech and business. Hence this project that we've been working on, and some of the problems that you can see there on the screen that we are seeking to solve. So obviously in the centre of that triangle, Australia's tech talent supply is falling behind demand. Where the entry-level roles are not well defined and are often misclassified. Emerging roles are not always recognised, and diverse talent is often excluded. And the vet training system at the moment really doesn't match industry needs. And at this point, we're talking about the tech sector specifically. So Lisa, if you can just jump to the next slide for me. So the entry-level pathways project that we worked on with ACS, with C4, with Deloitte, is working to solve that problem, particularly around that identification of pathways and entry-level demand. So trying to, as I said, identify in-demand and emerging occupations and roles in the tech sector, identifying the type and level of skills for those occupations and roles, and using a wide variety of data sources. And we'll talk to you a little bit more about that, the extent of those data sources further in the presentation. And then mapping these skills to relevant frameworks, including SFIA and DigComp 2.2. So those two frameworks have been identified by the federal government as the frameworks that we wish to use. And it's quite... I think anybody that attended the session earlier this week on SFIA and DigComp knows that it's not happening. It's relatively new to be trying to use these two frameworks in combination. And then understanding how the current training packages meets the skills needs and the relevant gaps. And then how do we update the training package? So really, the goal of the FSO is to figure out how we better create these training packages to make sure that the students going through them can get into employment. And we want to make those clear skills pathways from the training packages to the entry-level roles. So in a nutshell, this is the project that we've been working on to give, that's cool. You can jump to the next one, Lisa. To give you, for those of you that aren't familiar with the VET system, just to give you, I guess, a bit of an understanding of the size and the scope of this. The qualifications in the Information and Communication Technology training package go from level 2, so AQF level 2 up to 6, so that is from the Certificate 2 in Applied Digital Technologies up to the Advanced Diploma of Information Technology. And they also encompass, it's not just IT, it's also the telecommunications qualifications. So that's 651 units of competency that we're working with, 76 skill sets in IT and 32 skill sets in telecommunications. Noting that there are other qualifications that exist that are not national, like the Certificate 4 in Cyber, that are also relevant to this discussion but haven't been included at the moment. You can just jump to the next one, Lisa. And just again, to sort of give everybody a bit of a mental map, because you can see here, we've got the Certificate 4 in IT, the Diploma of IT and the Advanced Diploma of IT at AQF 4 and 5 and 6. And the reason we've picked these out is because as you see the work when we move forward in this presentation, you will see why we have tried to map back and identify key disciplines or job families, because at the moment in the package, these are the current specialisations that exist. And what we're trying to identify is, how do they need to be adjusted, if at all? Okay, so both from a overall subject matter point of view, and also from a degree of complexity or responsibility point of view. With that, I will hand over to Lisa, who is going to take you through and just give you a brief intro to SFIA and the rest of the project.
Thanks, Al. SFIA, for those on the call that are not familiar with the framework, SFIA is an open source two-dimensional matrix which was developed in the UK in 2000 by a consortium of organisations. We really saw, we've seen the growth of SFIA and now have version 9. Version 9 was released on the 30th of October 2024. It really is a framework to allow organisations to align their capabilities with what the organisation needs. It also allows us to have a look at the capabilities of individuals, can be aligned to education and training, aligned to recognition programs, and aligned to various other frameworks. The framework itself has 7 levels of responsibility. So level 1, follow; 2, assist; 3, apply; 4 is enable; 5 is ensure and advise; 6 is initiate and influence; and 7 is set strategy, inspire and mobilise. In version 9, they then drew out what was called the SFIA core competencies and business skills / behavioural factors, which there's 16 of, which you can see sort of as your interpersonal skills, and we'll have a look at a level of those shortly when we get into more detail. Then there is 6 categories. So we've got strategy and architecture, change and transformation, development and implementation, delivery and operation, people and skills, and relationships and engagement. Underneath those is some subcategories, and then we have the 147 SFIA skills. So it's a large framework, but it's quite a once you understand the framework, it's easy to use. It provides common language for skills in the tech sector and broader than the tech sector now. But it's a great framework, and we can understand why the federal government are really looking at utilising SFIA in this space. So SFIA 9, of course, defines the digital skills and IT skills across 7 levels of responsibility. As we said, vet qualifications can be mapped to SFIA. It was a task and a half, but it's been done. SFIA creates a bridge or shared language between education and industry, and this alignment really supports future-ready, flexible, stackable learning pathways and better workforce planning, so we can look at the roles and the tasks that somebody undertakes in a role and align those to DigiComp and SFIA, and then also align them to units of competency, which allows us to then really understand the skills and jobs and skills and capabilities required for jobs into the future. So the project went through quite a few iterations. It was a very quick project, 10 weeks. There were 3 key steps that really underpin our methodology, with testing, adaptation and validation throughout the process. And the outputs and short industry perspectives were incorporated as well. So our first step was to go in and discover and define the in-demand and entry-level job roles. To do that, we utilised the ANSCO/OSCA data. So basically took the ANSCO labour market data, mapped the ANSCO codes to the OSCA codes, because the OSCA codes are broader, and then we cross-check these against the FSO workforce plan and dashboards. We then moved into mapping the frameworks and ICT units of competency. So we used an AI tool, and I'll hand over to Craig shortly and he'll speak about some of the AI stuff we did. Utilising SFIA 9 and Digicomp 2.2 to map tasks and associated skills. So we actually mapped the OSCAR lead statement and main tasks to SFIA and Digicomp 2.2. We grouped skills into clusters based on common competencies, validated this with industry, and we mapped skills against the 651 units of competency. And then last but not least, we identified and informed pathways. So we conducted gap analysis to identify gaps in coverage. We assessed training package structure and developed findings and recommendations. So some of the lessons we learnt was that OSCAR and ANSCO actually lack coverage of entry-level roles. Tasks from Work Analyzer and the Australian Skills Classification did not accurately represent what was seen in industry. And skills frameworks naturally lean towards depth in technical skills over human skills. We removed weak matches between the skills and the ICT units of competency, which improved the rigour of the results. And then we also, developing data navigation tools, definitely enhanced our ability to interpret and analyse the insights. And grouping disciplines, so having a skills-first approach, really demonstrated the value of VET in addressing skills gaps. So I'm just going to head over to Craig Van Zyl from C4 Digital to discuss the AI, and automation that we used as part of the project. Craig?
Thanks, Lisa. So we've worked with capability frameworks for over a decade now, and had the good fortune of working with Lisa and SFIA for well over a year. And so, and our AI experience was brought to the project to try and help scale Lisa and her team effectively. As she described, there was a 10-week period for this project to execute. There were 651 units of competency to be mapped, and there were many job roles to be mapped, and the data needed to be analysed. So it was a task that was unlikely to be completed in that time frame. What I wanted to go through really here was just some key considerations that we had to take as we went through this. And I think, like it just talks to, I think, some of the challenges that AI presents and how to actually bring it into a mapping scenario and apply it here. So in the first case, not all large language models are equal. I think everyone's got their go-to. You might use Copilot, you might use ChatGPT. For different scenarios, you'll go to a different model. In a commercial sense, there are between 50 and 100 model families. So when we talk about companies like AWS and all the models they have, Microsoft, all the models they have, and there are 600,000 plus large language models to work with. So within each of those models, there's variation. Some of them have got specialities in medical fields, some of them have specialities in law fields, some of them have been trained on data that might be pre-2024, so have no understanding of SFIA 9, only understand SFIA 8. They have different biases towards the way that they process and analyze data. And, they've got different sort of technical specifications that all come into the considerations that we need to bring into selecting the models to achieve the quality result that we would get from someone like Lisa and her team in this case. The next thing is just to kind of understand the difference between prompting and automation. In an automation process, and in this one in particular, there were several prompting exercises that occurred. A prompt is effectively just a conversation that you have with the model. So when you get into ChatGPT, you post your question, gives you a response, you tell it where it's wrong and where it's right, and it refines that response. What you're doing there is you're developing a prompt in that context to help it understand the problem, and then as a result, respond to the problem and give you a final output. In this context, when we automate that process, we don't have a person to sit and refine, right? So we're trying to go through a process of mapping 651 units of competency. If Lisa and her team had to sit there and work through that with the model, it's actually slower than them doing that themselves. So automation is about trying to produce a quality output in a reliable way, and developing processes that are well tested and robust enough to sort of avoid failures and recover from things that occur there, but quality being critical. the way, like fundamentally for us, the way that we achieve that quality is through human in the loop. So we don't, in this project, but in any sort of our automation, our philosophy is from a generative standpoint, if we're generating content, the philosophy is AI drafts and human refines. So we might produce 80% of the output through an artificial intelligence process, but we would hand off to a human to refine that to be ready for the purpose that it's going to be applied to. In this case, we were analyzing. So we weren't generating content, we were actually analyzing content and then mapping. And so every part of this process had a person in it. We developed a methodology, so engineers who understand SFIA would sit and understood the way that Lisa and her team worked and developed a process that we could automate, that we could fetch the unit of competency data, break it up into the pieces that we needed, that we knew that we had the right information packaged up correctly, prepare a context to give to a model that was hand selected for that particular task, and then sort of analyze the output of that to make sure that it met the criteria. Our process, so we have people that develop the processes, we have people that test those processes. The mapping that we produce in the first instance, Lisa and her team would validate. That would come back and refine. We would refine those processes and those prompts so that it would factor in the feedback that her team gave us around where things might have been astray. And then as we got more and more confident, the results, the data sets got bigger and bigger to the point that the entire data set was produced, and Lisa could verify, and her team, of course, could verify samples from that to confirm that we'd met the objectives that was there. One of the things to kind of like with the human in the loop, I was having a chat with Claude AI the other day, and I'd said to it, I want you to answer this question, but don't make anything up. And it still came back with the fabrication. So I said to it, despite the fact that I tell you not to lie to me, you keep lying to me. I said, what's the story? It said, because I'm basically a very confident intern who really, really doesn't want to say I don't know in front of the boss. So that's sort of like critical to remember when you're dealing with AI, is it's designed to answer your question, and it often doesn't know the difference between what's fact and what's not. So human in the loop, despite both, it's critical to the success of the project, but it's also, it's a great team of people to work with as well. Lisa.
Yeah. Can I just also jump in there and say one of the things about this project was to get a methodology that we could repeat, and to deal not just this, the ICT training package is kind of the first step, which I'll allude to at the end, but there are many other training packages that need to be examined that are within the remit of the FSO. So this, trying to solve this problem goes beyond just this use case. It has, and everything Craig has said just goes to the rigor, I guess, of the process that we went through to try and make sure that whatever we do moving forward is going to get us the right answers.
Thanks, Sal. So off the back of the methodology, we 9 disciplines emerged. So the disciplines we looked at the 9 skills clusters and organised by discipline with the aim of grouping the roles that have shared skills requirements, that perform related tasks and operate within a common industry context, including a skills-led approach. So we ended up with software engineering, cybersecurity, sales and account management, architecture and systems administration, operations, service management and support, cloud network and infrastructure, data, project and delivery management, and telecommunications. And to say that we couldn't have more if we didn't look at just the in-demand roles would be an understatement. I believe that there is definitely more disciplines that we could look at into the future, but these were the 9 that were developed as part of the scope of the project. So of these 9 disciplines, we created what was called a placemat. The placemat provided you with an overview of all of the mapping of the data that we had completed. So we have down your left-hand side there, the roles, for example, under operations and service management, service management support. And then across the top there, you can see the mapping of the Digicomp skills into this discipline. So you can see the different ranges of the Digicomp skills that came through and how many times they were selected and at what level. In the middle table there where it says SFIA technical skills required for this discipline, same again, you can see the top skills out of SFIA 9, that were really selected. So these are, the ones out of the 147 skills, how many times they were selected and at what level. So we can see by looking at these tables that the skills themselves go across a range of job roles. And then we also needed to take to factor in the SFIA levels of responsibility. So one thing we've noted is we had our original list of 41 job roles, which were all based from OSCAR, which quite interestingly all sort of came in at that sort of SFIA level 4 and above, which is really sort of your professional level. So part of that, the recommendation was that we also added in some junior level roles to allow for that entry level pathway that is not really visible in just utilising OSCAR. So we've added some extra sort of, more junior level roles that can show a pathway into the level that OSCAR requires you to operate at. Then we had, this is just another example, this is the sales and account management example. And so you can see how the skills do change. Even the Digicomp skills change. The levels of responsibility are sort of around that level 3 through to 5. And where this becomes important is where we sort of show in the detail in the next slides around sort of how this then broke down into the next bit of detail. So I'm just going to provide 2 examples of job roles, so out of OSCAR. So within OSCAR, we've really delved into these 2 roles. So the ICT support engineer, and this is sort of the main or the lead statement and main tasks that are drawn out of OSCAR. And the same with the ICT sales representative. What's really interesting is when we looked at the mapping, we can say that the AQF or ICT units of competency give us 100% coverage of being able to assist somebody to be able to gain the knowledge to apply the SFIA skills for the ICT support engineer role. Very different outlook with the ICT sales representative, and we only had a 20% alignment for the units of competency to the ICT sales representative. Be mindful when we did the mapping of the units of competency to SFIA, we purely looked at ICT units of competency. The ICT training package, of course, does also bring in BSB units of competency and others, and we didn't actually have those in as part of the scope of the project. So interestingly enough, both of those roles came in at a level 4 of responsibility in SFIA. And earlier I was talking about the SFIA generic attributes and business skills behavioural factors. These are the 16 that come out of that, and both of the roles, as I said, align to that level 4. These are descriptors of what it means to apply each of these, we call them professional attributes, at the level 4. So if you look at autonomy, it says that the individual must be able to work under general direction within a clear framework of accountability. They exercise considerable personal responsibility and autonomy when required, plans, schedules, and delegates and works to others, typically within, and sorry, that's cut off, but you can see here that it's really about at a level 4, it is very much about them being at that enable level of responsibility. When you then come into the 147 skills, we aligned the 5 main tasks against OSCAR to a SFIA skill and level. And so if we look at the ICT support engineer, we have infrastructure operations, network support, application support, systems, software administration, and configuration management. All skills were at a level 4, and we know that there are units of competency that match each of those skills. Where with the ICT sales representative, we've got information management, methods and tools, bid and proposal management, selling and sales support. But the only skill that is covered in the ICT training package is information management. That could be due to a range of things. More than likely, the fact that the sales representative role would probably see some units of competency coming from the BSB or retail training packages as well. So just to delve down a little bit further into this, the ICT support engineer has, this is the DigiComp alignment. And so the ICT support engineer has really pulled the 3 DigiComp skills out of the problem solving area of that framework. And it's operating at a level 5, and that's probably because it's implied that somebody with that type of technical knowledge would be required to solve problems at a higher level and use a lot more technology to do what they're doing. But interestingly enough, DigiComp covered all 3 of these competence areas at level for the units of competency. And for the ICT support engineer, this just provides you with an example of at a level 4, what it means, what is required to be applied against each of the skills. So SFIA provides on average sort of 4 dot points per skill level descriptor, and gives you a really good indication of what it means to apply these skills. And we're happy to share out this, Sal, I hope so, we're happy to share out this PowerPoint presentation later as well. We then have the ICT sales representative, and DigiComp, as you can see, it does have a very different outlook for this role. And so we see, the top 3 skills sort of coming out of DigiComp is around information and data literacy, your communication and collaboration, and your problem solving. Interestingly enough, this role only requires, level 3 competence in these areas here. And so we know that the training package covers DigiComp for us. And Sal, I will hand back over to you. We will take questions at the end. I'll just hand back over to Sal.
Questions. So thanks, Lisa and Craig, and it was fantastic to be able to work with such great partners on this. And the thing is, this is a work in progress. This work is going to be continued. We're in the process, for anybody on the call who's engaged in the VET system, we're in the process of scoping for the ICT training package. So as I said in the beginning, what do we need to update? What do we need to change? What do we need to add? And there's also the really, I think, exciting thing. This was such a rigorous piece of work, but it also highlighted what else we need to do and what the gaps were. So you might have noticed in the disciplines that you didn't see a sort of an AI discipline emerging yet. And part of that was due to working within the constraints of the OSCAR framework. And also we did use some real-time data and some of the future skills workforce data that has a bit of a view to emerging skills, but there is a lot more that could be done to be looking at that emerging skills space and additional data and factoring that in as well. So we also need to do a little bit more analysis on the SFIA levels of responsibility across all of the different disciplines and pathways. And again, that balanced use of SFIA and DigiComp to integrate the human and technical capabilities. So as Lisa said, we didn't look at the BSB and some of the other units in there as well. And that's where those human skills, which again, when we do industry validation, come to the fore every time. What would be ideal is in the next piece of work to be able to see all of those generic or professional attributes that Lisa highlighted and be able to prioritise them for each of the different training packages and identify the 5 that are most relevant. And again, there's it was a project that was completed in a 10-week time frame. So there was quite a lot of industry validation and consultation, but there is more that needs to happen and is about to happen. And then obviously our job is to redesign the vocational offerings to try and reflect those SFIA and DigiComp aligned pathways. And then also to try and use SFIA to help define the qualification purpose and really improve that link to job outcomes and build the bridge, better build the bridge between the vet sector and industry and employment. And that's the presentation, and very happy to take some questions.
Sorry,
people just able to
sorry, I was on mute, Elias.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I put it in the chat, but there's one thing that I wasn't clear on just from the way you were talking about it. My understanding, and I think it's right, is that the Digicomp skills 1 to 5 are more or less pre-SFIA, and then so when you're a level 4 in Digicomp, that's like college level type capacity. Not is that right?
So that's really interesting, because if you were in the Digicomp presentation the other day, I think that was that linear view of a kind of the top areas of Digicomp, you know, when you're getting into highly specialised, then potentially overlapping with SFIA. And Lisa, you can please feel free to jump in and correct me if you think I'm wrong. What we actually saw is it might be a little bit more complex than that. So, and I think, to be honest, that in the presentation the other night, that was alluded to. So I think you might, if anybody watched it, there was diagrams, but there was like little fluffy clouds that sort of were being drawn around those where they overlap, because there are some questions about how they might overlap and intersect. And I think that's what's one of the really interesting things about this piece of work, is that we are trying to map that more accurately, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would have to say the same. You know, my initial view of Digicomp when I looked at it before this project, Elias, was very much similar to what you said. You know, you sort of get to a level 4 in Digicomp, and then, you know, level 4 basically aligns with, you know, the start of SFIA. And yes, to a degree, except like if we have a look at the 2 examples that we used, where the ICT support engineer is actually requiring that person, the top 3 Digicomp skills that were selected for the main tasks and lead statement in Oscar was at a level 5. And it's, you know, more than likely because it's an assumed knowledge for that person, or an assumed application of those Digicomp skills, because of it being an ICT support engineer and the technical background they have. Where the ICT sales representative, their alignment was only at a level 3. So, but the SFIA alignment for that person is at a level 4. So yeah, really interesting. We still have a lot of data analysis to do about how this stuff all comes about, but it's quite interesting to see all of the stuff. I
think Steve's asked. Oh, sorry, you keep going.
I just answered the question.
The Steve's asked about Digicomp 3.0 coming out, and I don't know, Craig, if you wanted to talk about the opportunities with the technology that you've got to incorporate the updates in the framework.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I posted a reply there, but the long and the short of it is that the automation is designed to be framework agnostic to a large extent. I mean, obviously there's specific refinements that we apply to each framework, but we can bring any framework into the automation. So even a marketing framework, for example, and analyze marketing job roles against it. So when 3.0 comes out, then yes, we'll be able to bring Digicomp 3.0 in and compare the results to that as well.
And noting that we need to be, we are producing units of competency at the moment that are mapped to Digicomp 2.0 and 2.2, and we will be doing the same thing as soon as 3.0 comes out. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're excited, Jackie. Stay tuned and please be part of any public consultation.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, sorry, I don't know, pressed a lot of buttons at once. But yes, I am currently delivering the training package, and yeah, really excited to see SFIA being incorporated. It doesn't get a lot of traction at the moment where I am. So yeah, I'm kind of be championing this in my work team.
Now you can just share the recording and say, you have to watch this.
That's right. I was right after all.
Yeah, fantastic. Any other Questions? That's great. I probably just want to do a couple of, hello, Mr. Grayson.
Rupert.
How are you?
Good, how you going?
Good.
Nope.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
we
got
can
you.
hear you, Rupert.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, thank you. Interesting project, and that's been a lot. I wanted to ask Sally, what is this going to mean in terms of the way that training packages are designed or expressed?
Yeah.
Does it flip on its head the way training packages are assembled?
I think we have to be asking ourselves that question all the time, right? So quals reform has given us a bit of a mandate. We've got the National Skills Agreement that's given us a bit of a mandate. You've got the changes in AI that are giving us tools that we've not had before. What can we do with all of that? What have we learned from this that can go into ICT? Because this was about trying to understand. So those I think I've tried to say a couple of times, this piece of work is not finished. So the ICT scoping is about to begin, where there's additional validation that is necessary. But I'll give you, what you're seeing is that you are getting clear indications of those key disciplines. You're also, and so then the question becomes for us, and you're also seeing when we map back and look at the overlap between the skills in the job roles that are in demand and SFIA at the levels of responsibility, we can start to see where the gaps in the current training package are. And there's still more work to do in that space around, for example, the emerging skills. But as Lisa said, if you look at ICT support technician, there is currently incredibly strong alignment between the skills the workforce is saying they need and what is already in the training package. The issue is actually in the way that the training package is currently built. So if you do a list, you can see all the skills. That's just not necessarily how those skills are not necessarily represented exactly as they're needed in the current structure. So it's not about the current system needing to be completely chucked out and completely changed. It's more about how do we better package it, how do we better structure it, and then also factoring in those emerging skills needs, because I'm sure Jackie's probably tearing her hair out around AI and the like. So yeah. But I would say we've got some very clear signals, but there's more work to be done. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. So this presumably this also gives a clearer connection between the training packages, quals, and job families, job roles, and the sort of recruitment industry, employment industry.
That's exactly, and ideally we really want industry to own these entry-level pathways, and sort of, there's often been a criticism of the education sector by industry saying that, you know, when the education system is not producing the skills that industry needs, we really want industry to own what those entry-level, you know, roles and pathways are, so that we can be clearer with the education system and say, these are the skills that are needed, that's what we need to train for. I think what's been exciting is some of it is more of a marketing thing, in my view, than it is actually a massive gap in the system. I think sometimes the skills are being taught, they're just not necessarily being communicated to industry in the right way.
Cool. But very interesting what you said. In some way, this is clearly a really important exercise, but you're also saying this isn't actually going to solve everything, because we're finding actually that this end of it wasn't that broken, but what was being mapped or claimed didn't translate back into learning content in the way that it should have. That's a kind of interesting discovery.
I think it was really quite it was really interesting to see the degree of overlap, but as like all good scientific research, I guess, like you just keep building and you keep learning and you keep uncovering more questions, and that definitely has been part of this project. So there is I guess everybody loves a black and white definitive answer, but that's not the way the world works. So there's still more work to do.
And we definitely didn't do a black and white definitive answer.
Yeah.
Can I just call out Sally online quickly? And can these people come off or come onto camera? Betsy, Taylor, Jackie. Just like to say I can't see Taylor's face yet. There she is. And Betsy, if you can, and Jackie, I'm talking about, is Jackie Spence still on the call?
I think she's just dropped off. Sorry, Lisa.
Anyway,
Wrong Jackie.
I'd just like to say, for the people that have just come off or come onto their camera, this is the team that's been part of the project. So Taylor and Jackie Spence from Deloitte and a couple of others. You know, we couldn't have done this without you. Betsy, our Director of Operations at ACS, Craig, our partner at C4 Digital, and Hayley, who's in my team at ACS in the Workforce Development team. It's been a really amazing project, and it's been really cool because I would have to say, and I shouldn't put this in recording, Sally, but I think this is the first time the ICT training package has ever been mapped to SFIA. Ever
Right.
that I know of, unless somebody wants to correct me. I'm pretty sure it's the first time it's ever happened. So looking forward to the work in the future if
The next
if
phase.
there's some. So
Yes. Thank you,
are
everybody.
there-
Really appreciate it.
yeah, any other questions? Fantastic. If not, I'm and also thank you to all the ACS staff that I can see on my screen for attending as well. Thank you for your support. Rupert.
I'll ask a cheeky question, Lisa and Sally. What do you think the implications are for higher education from this work and discovery?
Do you want to
That's
answer?
Well, look, I'll give you I would say, Rupert, you know, harmonization is the goal. So I think SFIA and frameworks give us potentially another tool to help facilitate that. And I'm certainly seeing a lot of conversations happening across different state governments and also at a federal level and certainly in the higher ed sector about how we can facilitate that and make that happen. So that's probably a bit of a wishy-washy answer, but I certainly see that the frameworks give us some tools to help make that happen.
Yeah, I think the frameworks are definitely, you know, not just SFIA. I think frameworks are definitely what can connect that, you know, both vet and the higher education system. You know, I think it's a really good place to start because ultimately everything we're doing in this space is about job outcomes and employment outcomes in the Australian economy. So if we can help get that alignment, that's where we should all be heading for.
I also, sorry, and apologies, I didn't give a shout out to the FSO team and I sort of wanted to, but I also wanted to give a shout out. Sorry, Charlotte Gilliam, if you can bring yourself on screen as well.
Yeah, Charlotte, I didn't realise
Charlotte was absolutely pivotal to organising this project, and profuse apologies for not acknowledging you, Charlotte. I was letting the FSO take a back seat, but she has been the key driver of this project. So
yes,
thank you, Charlotte.
Sure has. And also interesting to think about this from a lifelong learning lifespan model perspective. Yes, Steve, I would have to agree. It's interesting, you know, we see a lot of people see vet education as being at the start of your career journey, but now we're actually able to see where it can fit in across that lifelong learning, especially with short, sharp, you know, skill sets or something to sort of, you know, transition you into a different role. So if we're looking at like, you know, statement of attainment rather than a full qualification and having that actually mapped to a job outcome, for example, I'm not saying it's going that way. Please don't think that that's sort of, you know, the thought processes that we really have to be thinking about as we move forward.
I think the system has that. We keep talking about a modular and stackable system. The vet system is at its heart modular and stackable. I think the key question is, can we get more data driven and accurate in the creation of those modules and how they're stacked, I guess, and to reflect also the emerging skills that are coming through, and then also communicate that and have industry really leaning into that so that we can make sure that there's that, you know, that learners are just being able to walk into jobs much more readily.
Yeah. Right. And using other frameworks to map transitions across disciplines by finding relate. Yes. It's a big web that we work in, Craig.
Indeed.
Well, everyone, I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining us today. We have had an amazing SFIA week so far. We have another great session tomorrow with Phil Lovell, who I also know has been on screen today. Phil is delivering a session about self-assessment utilising the SFIA framework, and will take us in a show us through sort of the process utilising what's on the SFIA website. Happy for people to join in on that. It'll be a great session. Phil's got a lot of people coming to that session so far. But yeah, we have that session tomorrow, and that'll wrap up SFIA week for ACS. But thank you so much, everybody, for coming on. And Sal, thanks for presenting with me today, and also yourself, Craig.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Anytime.
Thanks for letting me participate.
No problems. Thanks all. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon.